hopefully it's working. I found a way. Hello, welcome. Oh, that was quick. Found a way to actually turn it round properly without actually... Oh no, I know how I've done it. I'm resting it on the monitor, but I've got a different plug in the bottom of the phone, because otherwise the battery goes. I don't want that happening. Been a long time, but I have been busy. Some of you will know why, others won't. It's not important. Main thing is I'm back. When I get the time, I will return. Not much more food. Try not to do two things at once, but it always happens. Just do an hour tonight because it's late and the clocks went back, so it gets dark too early now, so I don't want to be up all night. I'll miss the daylight. And the cat is in there. I can't move the phone around because it's been charged. Right, I finished eating, I will get going. Second at least of the red pill talks. It's basically, one way or another, everything that I talk about politically is about the red pill, because it's only about seeing things as they are, rather than seeing things as they are painted by the left. We want you to believe that if you wrap up a turd in a nice piece of cloth, it's going to be a very useful turd, and you can follow everything with it, take it as a present to your family, whatever it is. It's still a turd, but they hope you won't notice, because you only look at the wrapping and you won't realise until it's too late, when you've got a left-wing government and all their policies are turning your country into a third world hole. Then you'll discover too late. So basically what I'm trying to do is to warn people who are all mainly voters in advance: do not vote in a left-wing government if you don't want to become... Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, nice one there, I'll remember that one. Yeah, my sort of joke that. Anyway, so what I'm basically doing is stopping people from turning their country into a third world country, because the left wing want equality. What they don't tell you is that everyone will be equally poor except for them. The USSR was a perfect model, because the Communist Party members drove and they could travel around, they had two houses, and everyone else was virtually broke, had to queue for food. Now that is universal. It's the same in Cuba, it's the same in North Korea, it's the same in Venezuela. If you have a left-wing government, all that will happen is that the people who are running it are going to do very well, and everyone else will be equal, because they'll have nothing. So Zimbabwe and Venezuela have taken pretty well successful, reasonably doing countries and turned them into well, basically Stone Age almost. So really, anything that says it's for equality and diversity, I mean, I'm going to use this actually because it's only just, you know, when you talk about things they clarify. So I'll use this in the future as a very easy shortcut. Left wing equals third world, because technically the third world is supposed to be an early stage of development. They call it now the developing world. So they're supposed to develop into a democracy with Make America Great. Exactly, that's what it's all about. Trump will stop America from going the way that Hillary would have sent it. So the whole thing is that countries spend centuries building up from developing to developed countries, and the left wing are going to undo all that. The left wing, through their multicultural diversity and liberalism, will send everything back to the Aztecs and the Mayas and the Incans who sacrificed children to get a good crop. Now, you know, they don't do it obviously, because, you know, Hitler did it obviously, so now they have to be subtle. And Stalin and Mao, so they're not doing the old 20th century mass genocides, because we've got the internet and CNN things now, so it tends to get, you know, public before it's you know, if it's in Africa you can get away with it, but if you're doing it in the developed world you can't get away with it. So I have to do it subtly and politically and very slowly. So the destruction of societies takes decades. But if you look at Germany and Sweden now and France, they're overwhelmed with third world migrants, and if you look at all the videos on YouTube, you will see the third world migrants have basically turned parts of those countries into exactly where they lived. Because if you transplant, say, 10,000 third world migrants from Sudan and Ethiopia who are living in filth and not using toilets and water and things like that and killing each other, and you bring them to France, they live exactly the same way. No, they didn't, but we won't talk about Israel today because we're talking about the red pill. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people on here that are complete experts on Israel that do periscopes, and you can search for it, but I will stick to my own worldwide issue. It's not a cop-out, the two are completely unconnected. Israel's the only civilised country in the Middle East, so technically you're confirming what I said, because the Middle East never developed. And Israel is the only developed country in the Middle East. All the others, whatever they build, they break. One thing about Arabs, whatever they touch turns to dust. So, you know, they're too busy killing each other to live a civilised life. But, you know, since you mentioned it, that was something I was going to get to later on. But, you know, maybe when you see how it all fits together, you will understand that, yeah, well, as I say, you keep your views, and there's plenty of websites and Twitters and Periscopes that will correct you on that, but I know that nobody who actually dislikes Israel will ever understand it unless either they go there, and if they go there and they don't understand it, they're just anti-Semites, because anyone who's actually been to Israel and seen what a wonderful place it is would never say that. But anyway, that's diverting me from my agenda, and I know that in the past people get pissed off with that, even though there's only 3 people viewing yet. I started late, so what I've done basically, which is a great thing about Periscope, everyone who joins late, you know, once I see it get up to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Exclusion Death Squad, who is behind it? Okay, George Soros is the leader at the moment. David Rockefeller was his cohort, and Bill Gates and various others are all behind it. They basically want a yeah, I've heard that argument. They basically want a 2-tier society, a feudal system, where you had the elite running the world from the United Nations, globalist, and everyone else is basically a slave. So they want slave labour. Just, you know, take away our cars, take away our freedom, take away anything that we had that's going to allow us to get together and fight. But basically, if you imagine the great leap forward in the Cultural Revolution in China, that's pretty much what Soros and his band of merry men, who are all billionaires, would like to do. Even though they got a billion, they're not interested in money as much now. They want power. They want to be in charge of the world, and they do it through long and short-term policies such as the EU, which was developed by eugenicists and the Catholic, the Vatican, and the ex-Nazis after the war. After they lost the war, they realised, as I just said, that military is not going to work anymore because everyone can see it coming. So they did it slowly and subtly. So the 4th attempt, First Reich was the Holy Roman Empire. Second Reich, if I remember rightly, was what led to the First World War. The Third Reich is the one we all know about, and the Fourth Reich is the European Union. Who's it run by? Who's the richest member? Germany, because what they've done is they've fiddled the currency. Even though their products are very good, so are the Italians and some of the French and some of the others who still have manufacturing, but Germany does the best simply because the German currency is altered so that the German goods are so much cheaper than they would be without the euro. So they bought up the entire market in currency. They say, Rothschild says, whoever owns the banks, they profit from ashes, because if you imagine an ant's nest, everyone is getting enough to eat. It's basically like being in prison, because what they're going to do is we're going to be the equivalent of in an open prison. So we get all the things we need, like they did in the USSR at the beginning, but not at the end, and nothing else. And we will work for them. It was like the factories in the 19th century that issued tokens, and when they paid you, instead of having money, you'd get tokens. You would have to buy the money from their shop. It's the same as if you go to the cinema, you can't buy food anywhere else. You have to buy it from their shop, and it costs 5 times more. So you're basically cornering the market, and you're cornering the currency, and if you control the currency, you control everything. Now, one thing I've learnt is don't bother to worry about their motives, because evil motives are evil. Just trust me that they are trying to get their own way. They're not going to get rid of us. They get rid of a lot of us, but keep enough to work for them, and everybody else is going to be their slave. But it won't happen, because people like me are popping up all over the place. We've got Periscope and YouTube and all these other things, and what's basically going to happen is that I think it's something like 20% or 30% wake up. They will blow the whole thing out, and it's virtually begun now, because Trump's already got in. That was God knows how many people in America voted for Trump. And we've got Brexit, so Britain is finally being removed from the Fourth Reich. We started the war. Massive imagination. Do you mean immigration or imagination? That's probably your phone. Immigration, of course, because if you want to destroy the West, yes, if you want to destroy the West, what's the best thing to do? Bring in loads of people who are going to be back to the 15th century. So, when you see these videos, I mean, I've lived in London all my life, and there are parts of London you would not recognise now, because there's something in science called entropy, which is everything eventually goes back to dust. And you actually see these, they talk about gentrification in London. Well, that's bollocks, because all that's happening is that the richer people are moving to other areas because they can't afford the other areas they want to live in, and the ones that are left over, which are the poorest ones, you barely see a white person there. Now, this isn't about race or anything, because the point is, if you go to the rich areas, you still see black people there, but they're not the people I'm talking about, because these are the professionals who don't have any race, because it's about the class. They have brought themselves out of that system, and they've moved to the areas which are civilised. So I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about where the gangs are, where everybody's shooting each other. And we had our weekly stabbing yesterday in London, and of course Sadiq Khan, the mayor from Labour, of course, says we must get used to it. Why does he say we must get used to it? Because he's actually in charge of London. So if he says we must get used to terrorist attacks, it's because he's running London for the next 4 years, and he said we're going to have terrorist attacks because that's my policy. And of course, he hasn't created the terrorist attacks. All he does is he's created the environment where they are allowed to happen, because in New York they had the zero tolerance thing, and their killings and shootings, unlike Chicago, went down to almost zero, whereas in Chicago presumably they have the same policies they do in London, and they get more people killed in Chicago than by any terrorist attacks in America every year. So, you can get in science the control where you get two virtually identical cities in America, apart from the location. One's got virtually no crime but the same amount of black working class people, for example, and the other one's got lots of it. Why? Because the mayor decided to get rid of it in the 1990s or so, and it worked. So Mayor Khan is now removing the police from London, and the police have actually said that we're not going to investigate any crimes such as burglaries or muggings or anything, because we haven't got the manpower, unless you actually know who did it. Now, of course, if you're burgled, you don't know who did it, and they won't know who did it until they find out, but they won't investigate it. So that basically means if you want to carry out burglaries, come to London, because nobody's going to stop you. However, the same police that can't go out for burglaries and all the other things that police are for are now prosecuting hate crimes. Now, what is a hate crime? 2003 Act, apparently, I read yesterday, has started hate crimes in Britain, which means if you say something nasty, you can be prosecuted for it. Now, up till then, you either lied, which was libel, or you said something which was inciting a crime, which was inciting a crime. That was it. I've got a law degree, I studied this stuff. But just hate crimes is what you have in Turkey or in Saudi Arabia, blasphemy or paedophilia is nothing to do with the law. I mean, that's just something which is part of human nature, and they'll never go away unless you kill them, basically, which I'm not suggesting you do. I mean, that's always been illegal, and it just depends how much you can do. But of course, if you allow them to do it because they're Muslims, then you're doing a Sadiq Khan and saying, we know it goes on, but we're not going to stop it because they're our friends. And I'd like it to be a bit more like Pakistan, because I feel a bit nostalgic for the old country, even though I've never been there in my life, or if you've been there, I wasn't born there, but I would like London to be more like my hometown of Karachi or something, and that's pretty much what he's getting. Now, we're down to 2 people, that's a shame. As I said at the start, hopefully I will keep going and just keep talking for an hour, because it's too late to keep on for longer than that, and everyone who missed me will be able to do it on the replay. So what I will suggest, just like on YouTube, because I've got many followers, but unfortunately I haven't been on it for about a month because I've been busy with the bereavement. That's oh yeah. I mean I'm not talking about, oh, hello Wales. I haven't been to Wales. I nearly went to Wales. Well, I say I nearly went to Wales. I wasn't planning to go to Wales, but I went very near to Wales a few weeks ago, but I didn't get as far as Wales because I didn't have the time or the energy. But I did go back to Ross-on-Wye for the first time in 40 years. And it looked a lot smaller than it did when I was young. Oh, I've been to Wales a few times. It's a long way from London. I had a lovely holiday in the Black Mountains when I was 13 with my school, and then we went to Ross-on-Wye a couple of times. Second time we went to Monmouth and places like that, and Chepstow, so we saw the south. And then I went all the way across to Bury Port 25 years ago or more, and saw the whole coast all the way from Newport all the way through Swansea, well, round Swansea and through Llanelli and everything. So yeah, it takes ages from London to get to Wales, even by train. It's like 19th century transport still. So where were we? Yeah, I'm hoping that people will be able to replay this and tell everyone about it, because we've reached the point now where the knowledge base has become complete, where anything that happens in the news, people who have studied it, it takes the same amount of time to get to Edinburgh by train that it did when the first trains were timetabled there. It's unbelievable. Most train journeys in Britain have actually slowed in the last 50 years or so. That's since it's been privatised. Fancy that. Oh, you're in Kingsbury. Oh, no, the reason for that, it's not a coincidence. Periscope is very good. It's what you call Google location based. So the first when you go on the home page, it shows you all the nearest people to you, or somebody you're following. So 50% of my viewers are usually people. I mean, one bloke was in the next road from me. Now, the thing that worries me a bit, because I put in the location, but I am told alternately that it doesn't show my exact location, even though when I go back and look at the thing afterwards, it shows the Google map with the dot on it. And I think, well, is that just for me or is it for other people? Because, you don't really want people knowing your address. However, some people have said, no, we can't see it. We only get the thing saying you are in wherever it is. But obviously it says Kingsbury, so you must have at least the postcode. But, I've got to tinker around with the settings. But I can't believe Twitter would allow people, just if you make a mistake, people see where you live. Oh, yeah, exactly. Brent, that's all right. Yeah, I am in Brent. Well, that's good enough, because that's what I set on Twitter. But one guy, I don't know how he did it unless he looked it up in the phone book, because I'm in the phone book, was actually so close that that's fine. No, if I stood outside my house and called, he would have heard me. But he was a bit rude, so I wasn't going to arrange to meet. He seemed like a bit of a hooligan, to be honest. Now I've said that, he'll probably watch and say, no, I'm not a hooligan. Well, all I'll say is, you've got that little box, and if you put in rude words and things, then people will assume whether you are or not. Anyway, so tell people about it, because the thing about understanding politics is that every time there's a little bit of news, you will discover how it fits in. Now, my background is constitutional law, for a simple reason that having studied law, I also took extra options of it. Therefore, also I did it for A-level, so, I've had more experience in constitutional law out of all the different subjects I've done. And then, of course, I went on to teach it for many years, so I see how everything fits together, and what can be done and what can't be done and what shouldn't be done. And things like cornering markets and cartels, of course, are illegal in every country in the world, but most countries do it. It depends whether it's subtle or whether it isn't. But great thing about people like Max Kaiser, who is not perfect, but he's got some good stuff and some bad stuff, is he explains economics in ways that most people wouldn't really understand unless he did it or find out about, because he was an insider in Wall Street. And when you see the magic tricks, because what they're basically doing is smoke and mirrors, and they're doing tricks. If you've seen The Sting, and anyone who's seen The Sting will understand how modern economics works. It's all computerised. Welcome, yes, hello. Now, The Sting was based on knowing the results of a horse race after it was done. So they bet on a horse race where they knew the results. So, oh my goodness, I don't understand the first word. I don't understand the second word. Never mind. So anyway, what they're doing in economics now is they're setting the market so they know the result first, and then they bet on it. You know, insider trading pretty much. So they manipulate the market so they already know the result, so they put the money in the things that they know are going to win. Oh, thank you. Well, it's nice. There isn't much of it left. But anyway, so that's basic. You are red-pilled, I presume. So what we need to do is spread the word. So I'm saying to the people that are here tonight, take the... oh, everyone's gone. Never mind. You'll still be watching this. Take the... code from this when I've finished and paste it around all the places. Welcome, Anna. Haven't seen any of the old crowd yet, but I am on a bit late, but never mind. Thank you. Yes, they were expensive. They're nice. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, just share it around, because I'm basically going to do... How old am I? Let's see if you can guess. I mean, I've only grown a beard recently. That probably adds about at least 10 years on to me, but see if you can guess. I understand it. I don't speak it very much now. I don't get the chance, but all the basics I can understand virtually everything you're saying. Welcome, yes. So how old do you think I am? I've always told people, for some reason it seems to fascinate them, but I know Spain. I haven't been there for a long time. Brother of the cat, Spanish? Not really. No, I did a term of Spanish, but I've done French for most of my life, so... You know, if I get sort of school level French, I can cope with that. Don't like to speak it like no Russian at all. No, hola. Yeah, I know that's hello. Yes, that's good. So are you in France, Diana? I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, that was about as far as I got. Yes. Oh, you're in France. Which part of France? I've been round all the top and the west of France, but not the bottom of France. Oh, Lecton, that's right in the middle, yes. My mother's been all over the south. Oh, you're from Russia. Oh, very nice. Are you in Russia now, or are you over in another country like England? Your English is very good. That's the great thing about Periscope. You get all the local people being sent your thing automatically, and then everyone from around the world. So you never know until somebody tells you. Oh, make a guess at my age, and we'll see how close you are, because people are either very good at it or they miss it by miles. It will be interesting to know. But I suppose the white beard sort of can't really hide so much of the reality. I don't mind. It's what nature provided me, and thank you. Yes. Well, I learnt it since about the age of 3. So we used to go to our friends in Le Touquet ages ago. Thank you. Yeah, we used to go to the Touquet, and they didn't speak English. My parents were fluent French speakers, so I had no trouble understanding them talking, but it took me a few days to start speaking. Then we'd have to go home, and also when we went on holiday in places like Brittany, they used to have all these comics in French, like Asterix, and I was there for 2 weeks, so I'd sit and read the comics, and I didn't, because they were for children, I didn't have any trouble understanding the French, so it's quite useful, that. So I've got a sort of base level that I can understand, even if I don't speak it very well. Don't know what's happening with the numbers at the moment, because it never tells you when people drop off, but it tells you the numbers drop off, but not the people. It shows you when they join, but I've had times when 3 people have spoken, and there's only been 2 on the number. I don't know if it's the broadband at your end or what, but everyone keeps coming and going, which is very confusing. Now I'm down to 0. Anyway, I'll carry on with my talk, the red pill, because some of you have actually woken up already, but the point is that we've got two lots of people here. The people who have been red-pilled and the people who are willing to learn, or aren't willing to learn. But the fact that you have turned up here now and it says red pill, then it means you probably are willing to learn, otherwise you would have disappeared. I've just noticed another thing which is quite interesting. This is a mirror image, because my shirt here says Russell Athletic backwards, so you'll see me in reverse. I never noticed that before, but you know, if you haven't got writing, you don't realise that I'm actually looking in a mirror, which it shouldn't be doing. The camera should flip it round, which I know you can do on the phone, but I don't know if you can do it on this. Anyway, trivialities aside, Paninaro, goodness me, I know you from Twitter. First time I've seen you here, or if it's not the first time, it's the first time I've noticed you here. But if my memory worked right, I'll get your first name here. It doesn't matter. I know I've been following you for about 3 years. You're one of the first people I ever followed on Twitter. You'll be glad to know that's going back quite a while. It's nice to see a familiar name again here, and you're up late as well, because I think, as far as I know, you're local, fairly local to me. So what I was saying about communicating is that we've got the people who have been red-pilled already and the people who are willing to be red-pilled. And the thing is that if you are already red-pilled, you still listen to people talking about it. Welcome. Yeah, nice to see you. Steve, is it? Am I right there? Paninaro is Steve. Now, if that's true, my autistic memory is doing very well. Yes, Steve Paninaro. And welcome, Mr. Fed. Glad to see you all coming back. It's been a while, but I'm getting a bit more time to myself now, so we'll have more time to Periscope. I might even get the tablet fixed so I can do it on a proper computer, not on the phone. So those of you who have been red-pilled, watch the lectures on red pill, because it gives you details. You need to know as many examples and details as possible to share it with other people. So spread the word, and those who are willing to do it, just listen, because facts are the same whoever you are. There's no way that I will be accused of bias, because all I'm doing is explaining a policy. I've been so blooming busy, Samantha, that it's yeah, thank you, Steve. See, it took me about a minute, but I remembered, my mind put all the bits together and remembered your first name. Because if you see something often enough, it's in the memory somewhere. So basically, the plan, which I've written down here, is to turn the Western society back into the third world. It's turning over. If you imagine, it's very easy to break something, but very hard to build it. So it takes hundreds of years to build a civilization, and a few minutes, depending whether you use a bomb, or a few decades if you use politics, to turn it back. I mean, already London is becoming as overcrowded as any city in India, because when we used to see the films of India and even Tokyo, with all the people being shoved into the train every day, or in India on the top of the train, we think, my God, thank goodness we're not living like that. And I'll tell you what, if you go to London now in the morning, not that I'm ever up in the morning, but when I was up in the morning and had to commute into town, there were trains going from Golders Green where, if you did actually get on the train, it was already half full, and you were standing like that against the door for 25 minutes to get into London, because even if you waited for the next train, it made no difference, because there were so many people on the train already that every time the train came, the platform for the next half hour would be full. And of course you had to leave because you had to get to work on time. So you were crammed into the train. Now what they've done is they've reduced the roads in London. In the past you would get these road improvements where they'd actually give you extra roads. What they're doing now is they're reversing the roads in London. So all the decent roads in London are being reduced in size, so that it's very hard to drive along them, and everyone's getting jammed up because they don't want us to drive anymore. That's actually official policy in every country virtually in the EU, from the EU, that are now one by one applying the rule of banning cars. And they're doing it because they want us to be stuck like the Russians were before the Berlin Wall fell down, so that they can keep us where they want us. And you know, you will have to get a permit if you want to travel or to buy a car. And we used to feel sorry for the people in the Eastern Bloc living like that in the 60s and the 70s, and now we are replacing them in the 21st century, because what we're really getting is a combination of the USSR and somewhere like Cuba, with a bit of Pakistan thrown in with extreme Sharia law. So if you imagine, you're basically getting the worst of every aspect of the world flooding into Europe, and it was America when Obama was in charge, but thank goodness the Americans are sensible enough and kicked out that crap after 8 years, and they realised it, and they won't be getting it anymore, because the most powerful person in the world is the American president, so he is cleaning the place up from there, and with any luck it'll spread east, excuse me. Won't spread west because that's the Pacific. Spread east, and we'll catch some of the benefits, and Europe will catch some of our benefits from Brexit, because they'll see that we've done it, and we'll suddenly be doing really well and doing the things that we could have done for 40 years and still have manufacturing and things and coal mines, which we've all lost. And well, Britain has been the test case. They've actually left the EU and they're doing very well. Let's leave the EU. So, of course, once 3 or 4 countries do that, there will be no EU, because there'll be nothing there. You can't have a dairy farm without any cows to milk. So we've been the milk cash cows for the EU, the Fourth Reich, and they have lost their greatest contributor, except for Germany. And, of course, Germany contributes to the EU, but their economy is so much better than ours that they can afford to do it, whereas we can't. We are being sucked dry by the EU in every possible way, because they make all our laws at will, which means that if they want to overrule our law, they will do. So if we've got a law currently, if you look at the date on it, you'll know whether they made it or they didn't make it. It's very hard to find out who made our laws, because a growing percentage of them in the last 30 years since we got the Maastricht Treaty have been made by the EU, but very rarely do they tell us. So 1 or 2 huge things like the social chapter couldn't be ignored, because it was the EU social chapter which we signed up to, and then the only decent part of it, which is maximum hour working week of 48 hours, we managed to drop out. So if you want to be a slave, come to England, because we can make you work as many hours a week as we say so. But after that, everything else we took on, except the actual useful bit. That's typical British. They will tend to throw out the rubbish, the good stuff, and keep the rubbish, because they haven't got any discretion at all. And that goes for all 3 parties in Britain. They're all as bad as each other, which is why I'm a member of UKIP, because without UKIP, Britain would still be toeing the line of the EU, and we'll soon get the EU army and the greater integration and the euro, which is what unfortunately is going to happen to everyone else. But people are slowly waking up, and what they call it is the populist extreme right. The people that don't like us call us the populist extreme right, because what we're basically doing is we are spraying bleach over the dirt. Turkey, welcome to Turkey. Yes, I've never been to Turkey, but I do know that the Turkish women are particularly attractive. So if you know any nice women that are looking for a man in England, send them over, thank you. I've been near Turkey, but I haven't been to Turkey. I've been to the south of Turkey, yeah. It's not that far from where I have been. Anyway, so we are the bleach that is killing the germs, the bacteria of the left, the liberal left of bacteria, who are turning the West into a rotten mass of third world rubbish. And they don't like it. So when AfD got parties in Germany, they got all these MPs, they equated them with Nazis. Now, of course, the Nazis are not libertarian, and they're not really right-wing, they're extreme left-wing, as they're called National Socialists, is the clue. However, the actual genuine right-wingers are about freedom. If you are right-wing, you believe that the people have got more power than the government, and the government are there to do as little as possible while we get on with our lives. So AfD in Germany is simply a libertarian party, as are the Austrians and Geert Wilders and people like that. They are trying to bring back the national pride and unity that we had before the 80s and 90s, when all this nonsense became popular, which I remember because I was at school and doing sociology, and I was absolutely disgusted when they were talking about taking all the money away from anyone that earns more than the average wage. And then I realised very quickly that we're dealing with some psychopaths here, because of course anyone who has money, if they don't inherit it, does actually work very hard to earn it. And if they, if they haven't got it through crime, most rich people have just been very successful at what they do, and it's their money, and nobody else has the right to it except for the bare minimum, which pays for the services. However, giving people more tax the more money they have, even though they pay more money at a flat rate of tax, is theft. Because if you think about it, if you're on a flat rate of tax, whether it's 20 or 30%, everyone pays more tax the more they earn, because they are paying 20 or 30% of 60,000 instead of 30,000, so they're paying more money. So making them pay more money the more money they have is basically taking away any incentive to work. So all they'll do is they'll get accountants and hide the money, or they'll put it all abroad, or they'll leave the country altogether, or they just won't bother to work that hard. So high taxation of the rich is state theft, because there's absolutely no benefit to anybody, because when they take it, they're not giving it to the poor people. All they're doing is taking it and sticking it in things like wind turbines or foreign aid, or lesbian holidays, or whatever it is they like to do in your local council. Whatever it is, it's not helping you and me, because every penny they take off the rich doesn't go to the poor, it just comes off the rich. You don't know where that money is going. And I'll tell you what, every penny that goes on road tax doesn't go on the roads, it just goes into the treasury. So our roads get worse, and it costs more to drive, and it costs more to travel. We've got the most expensive travel in the world in Britain for public transport per mile. Even New York's got cheaper transport than we do in London. Thank you for the Green Hearts. I'm sure you'll get... funny thing is about the Green Hearts and everything, I think I was looking at the stats occasionally, and the people that give the most hearts go to the top of my fan list. It's clever the way they arrange it all here. So it means that when I'm looking through, one thing which is weird, because I'm only just getting the hang of it, it's not like Twitter, it's a lot more complicated. I've been trying to follow people here, and it's very difficult to scroll down these things, probably because I've only got a little phone here, and actually find out the total number of people with all their names that watch me. So I can't always follow people because I can't find them on the list. So if you've asked me to follow you and I haven't, it's because I can't find your name. Simple as that. But if it comes up 2 or 3 times, as some of them do, and I do find it, I usually get there in the end. But I don't watch much Periscope, simply because you're either a performer or a viewer sometimes, and you haven't got time to watch everything else at the same time, because if I'm watching something, it's normally one of these spiritual things, because I'm learning the things that I don't know. So I use the videos to watch things I don't know, and make them to teach people what they don't know. That's what I'm talking about on the radio this afternoon. So we're all sharing our knowledge. So as I say, it's a bit late and unlucky and everything else. I've only got a few viewers tonight because it's my own fault for not coming on very often. However, if you can pass this on, because one thing about not having many viewers, it's at least giving me a chance to cover everything I wanted to without stopping every few minutes to talk, which is what I do on alternate videos or so. So I'll have, some of these are interactive, and some of them I say, well, I'm going to do an hour's lecture, because lots of people come in late, want to see what I've been talking about, can't keep up if I keep getting interruptions. So I answer questions at the end. Now, Tariq, that looks like a familiar name. I certainly had a Tariq before. So if you're Tariq from before, hello, and otherwise hello anyway. So this will go up on the list of my things. And if you just want people to learn about politics, send them this, because hello and welcome. Yes, I'm back. You're back. Pass this around, because it's a fairly compact list of what I'm talking about today, and there's enough in it to make sense to people that if you pass it round with just all the basics, and I'll tell you another thing about Red Pill, is it goes by repetition. If you tell somebody something 3 times, they'll get it. Because the first time goes over their head, the second time it goes through, the third time it goes in one way and stops because it gets caught the third time. That's just psychology. So quite often you'll say something and you'll hear it, but it won't mean anything. If you say it the 4th time, or oh yes, I know about that, and it becomes familiar. And the best thing that happens with me is when I've been on the internet telling people various names and whatever else, and then a year or 2 later and I'm listening to the phone-in radio and somebody rings up with something that I've said on the internet, I said, well, without us on the internet they wouldn't know how to see through world fraud in politics, that they are trying to turn the West into a third world country. They are trying to undo all the developments we got in the West and bring us back to all the places that are like, well, exactly, I'm explaining how it is so you can tell other people. When we get 20 or 30% of people who understand how it works, they will no longer be able to play the games because it's all an illusion. As I said at the beginning, they've wrapped up a pile of crap in a very nice wrapping and hope you never lift up the wrapping to see what's underneath. So the anti-fascists are fascists. People that say they're anti-fascist are actually the worst fascists of the lot, and Churchill said that would happen, and he was absolutely right. So don't go by what's on the surface, because the devil in the Bible says that you will get everyone on your side, give them what they want, and then shoot them in the back, because you'll tell them a little bit of truth, you'll get their trust, and then you'll execute them. Whereas the right wing, you know, we're just saying that people are there to be free, and if certain groups and societies and cultures are the equivalent of criminals, we don't want them living where we do, because we stopped doing that 100 or 200 or 500 years ago. And, you know, if they will civilise themselves and stop eating each other or whatever they're doing at the moment, we will welcome them. Well, look at Syria and Lebanon. All they ever do is kill each other. Or Yemen, or Saudi Arabia. They send in troops, all the Christians kill the Muslims. Sorry, all the Muslims kill the Christians. Christians don't kill the Muslims, not since the Crusades. Muslims kill the Christians. When they kill the Christians or send them away, they kill each other. And, you know, if you go back to very ancient history, you will get these dynasties where you get cousins and brothers. Exactly, you get the cousins and brothers all try. They did it in England for years, and they all kill each other. And Mary Queen of Scots and all these, the Scottish and the English, will kill each other to try and get it. Now, we stopped doing it in about the 16th century, but if you look at English history, that's the Middle East is basically run on sort of pre-16th century English conquering. So they will conquer each other. So every few years you'll get an exiled member of the family coming back to try and take power from his evil cousin, and another country will sponsor them, and they'll go in and kick the shit out of each other, and Russia will support one side and Iran will support the other side, and Britain will support them both because they're selling arms to both sides or whatever, and Obama will support the ones who are the Muslim Brotherhood, etc. So basically what you're doing is like a cockfight. You know, you put these animals into a thing and you put bets on them and sell popcorn and make lots of money while they're doing what they do naturally. Now the thing is, I couldn't give a damn, like Star Trek, the first directive, if people in Yemen or Lebanon want to tear each other to pieces. Welcome, see, if I'm on long enough people spot me. I'm not going to do too much longer because it's late, but as I said at the beginning, please watch this from the beginning, because it is actually a red pill. If you watch this once or twice, you will understand so much, because it took me 20, 30 years to learn all this. And I'm now teaching it because you will escape from the chains of George Soros and Bill Gates and all the others who are trying to enslave the world and turn the West into a battlefield. So, basically, it's a very simple picture. Don't take any notice of their motives. Their motives are power and corruption. They're not trying to kill all of us. They're trying to enslave all of us. And just think of the USSR or China. That's the sort of society they want for Europe, because as far as they're concerned, Europe are far too clever and they can't dominate Europe if we are too civilized. So they're now diluting European society by bringing in all these people who are still killing each other, and that's what they do by their nature. And all they're doing is they are transplanting vast amount of third world society. And look at the videos on YouTube, you'll see they're now all over Europe. And the thing about immigration under international law, because if you combine international law for the civilised ones and European law for the uncivilised ones, it's virtually impossible to deport very many of them once they are there. You can't deport legal migrants, you can't deport refugees even if their own country becomes safe again, and the ECJ make it almost impossible to deport criminals. So basically, say maybe 10-20% maximum, probably less than that, can be deported. Once you have got 1,000 people per day or per week into Europe from the third world, they are stuck. Very few of them want to go home, very few of them will go home, and it's virtually impossible by law to chuck any of them out. So in England, every 3 years we get 1 million new people, and I think something like half of those are from immigrants, and quarter of the ones that aren't from immigrants are from the children of immigrants. So, you know, just think about the exponential growth. And there's nothing we can do about it once they're here, because under international law we're not allowed to throw them out, and if we did, they'd probably put all our leaders in prison for doing it, because as far as I know, it's quite easy for them to come along and say, oh, you've just broken international law, we're going to arrest you, like they did with Ceausescu. Now the thing is, just like these offensive words and things, it's very easy if they make a law that they want to enforce it. So if I say something about homosexuals, which I wouldn't dream of doing, but I know somebody who did, he was arrested the next day. So you don't say rude things about homosexuals, because the current law says if you're rude about a homosexual, you will be arrested. But if you eject somebody from this country against international law, Interpol or The Hague or whoever it is would get the politician who was in charge, the minister, and arrest them and have them up in court tomorrow. So they are not going to break that law, because they know perfectly well what will happen if they do. So they can't even rule their own country the way they want to, because this is how the whole system has been organised. Anyway, I hope, because we're down to one viewer now, one thing I've learnt from college is that an hour's lecture is enough, because you need to process everything. So I'd much rather people get it in nice chunks, because it's like a book. You get bored after a while. Stick to 1 or 2 chapters a week. Process what I've said and pass it round, because these are the equivalent of the lectures I used to go to at college, because that was one of my, well, I didn't do college lecturing at degree level because I didn't get a master's degree, but certainly did college lecturing at A level, so no level, mainly A level. So I know how teaching structure works. So basically these lessons can be used just like anything in a university. And I'll tell you something, as far as I would think, apart from the fact I don't give too many references because it's not an academic course, what I'm talking about is probably about degree level politics, because anything less than that you wouldn't have enough information. And if you don't have an exam in it, if you remember the Open University in the old days, there was a huge amount of degree material there that everyone watched on television. It went straight in, and if you've watched it a few times you can understand it, because it's not actually that difficult. It's only difficult when you have to do an exam. But the material itself is fairly logical, especially if it's taught in a simple way. People understand it. So basically, I'll keep saying it every so often, because every 10 minutes I get new people. Watch this from the beginning. Is the NHS good? It was fantastic, yeah. It's not perfect now, simply through too many people and not enough hospitals, but the NHS is where I would be very happy to go when I need it, because I've had it all my life, and it's saved my life at least once. It's helped all my family and everyone I know, definitely. Oh yeah, can't go wrong with the NHS, because you shouldn't become poor if you're ill, because it's not your fault. So that's the thing about a welfare state, is it's a safety net. If you have a safety net for the people that can't work, And when they're ill, that's all you need basically. And criminal laws and civil laws to protect people from crooks and everyone else, and anything else you don't really need the government for. And you know, war is only there because you get invaded or you want to invade someone else. Now if you're a civilised country, you wouldn't want to invade anyone else because you're too civilised to do so. And really, in a way, we don't really need to have that much of an army, because now it's international. Since the Second World War, the welfare state can't bankrupt the nation. That's a good question. I've been following Basic Income on Twitter. If you click on their Twitter thing, you can get to their website. They calculated that in most Western countries, basically you've got a percentage of GDP that goes on welfare, and it's very stable at the moment. And you know, we've paid it for decades, so we know perfectly well how much we can afford. But if they just took away all the admin, they just give money straight to everyone regardless, then nobody would ever be poor again. If they wanted to have any more money, they just carry on working. But really, there's enough money going around now. If they stopped all the buildings that they're paying for and all the staff they're paying for to check if you're entitled to benefits, and just say we're going to give it to everyone, you would have no poverty. So nobody could say that I've got to go to a food bank. Nobody would have trouble paying. Well, they might have trouble paying their bills for the gas and electricity because they're too high anyway. That's another story. But they would all have enough money to survive, and nobody would be poor because they'd all have enough to live on, because the basic income is worked out every year as a percentage of GDP. So if it's a fixed basic income, if the GDP grows, then you get more money a year, and if it shrinks, you get a bit less, but it's always proportionally enough. So it can't bankrupt the country. So I hope you understand that. That is one of the things that I've only learnt in the last few years, and it makes perfect sense. And now 3 or 4 countries are considering it because it makes sense. They're doing trials of it, and if it actually works, and they do the trials in 2 or 3 places for a few years, and it hasn't caused any problems and people are actually happier, then it will spread. So, you know, new things take a very long time to come into play, and old things take a very long time to get rid of. But they do happen. And if you compare any of the things we took for granted, if you're old enough, say in the 70s, half of them have changed. You know, some for the better, some for the worse. But you get so used to things being the same, then you blink and they've gone. So, you know, anything you take for granted, whether it's Woolworths or anything like that, you wake up one day, Woolworths, gone. No more Woolworths. 1 minute it was there, next minute it's gone. And you never know necessarily which is going to be there and which isn't. So, you know, unless they've got signs where I mean, I'll give you my tip for the next 3 years economically for a few things, because you have the seeds of destruction planted within it, because you've got pyramid selling, where you've got Ponzi scheme where the same money is just being shifted around, but they're not actually making anything, they're just moving it. And in the end, a pyramid scheme will run out of new investors because they're not producing anything of value. And if you're borrowing money every year and you're not making any money, you'll go bust. Now, Tesla Motors in America is probably the most subsidised company in the world, and they've never made a profit, and they're now starting production of various new cars. Now, if you think about electric cars, Adam Smith's teaching, well, it's goodness me, you're going back to when I was 18 now. It's your basic free market capitalism. I don't remember enough about it, but I will go to Hayek and say whatever Adam Smith said, whatever Hayek did with it is probably the best thing. You leave the economy alone unless you have to interfere in it, and let the legal system deal with the fraud, and have an asset-based currency and limits on borrowing and lending, because otherwise you're going to have crashes. So you need a free market, but you need caps on insolvency and things, because otherwise you're going to have booms and busts the whole time, and asset bubbles, which are very good for the people that create them. Right, no, it's not, because it's outside the economy. You can't, what's the name, Max Kaiser explains this, you can't have competition and capitalism where it's a single market. So for essentials like water and electricity and trains, there's only one railway line, there's only one train, and there's only one water supply, and these are essential things. So there's plenty of economy in retail and things like that, and services that can be free market, but not for public services where you can't really ever compete because you've only got a single product. So what you do is you just isolate the services from the market, give everyone a basic income, and then everyone is happy because you've got the best of both worlds. See, the old left-right now is more social than economic, because economics is a science and social policy is about preference. And by the rules of efficiency, if you divide the economy up in certain ways, it's always going to be more efficient, whichever country you're in, because you're making the best of the resources. And it's only people that want to steal money from you by overtaxing you, making it very difficult to do certain things. Yes, you will find that the economy, like France, will go down the toilet because it had Hollande for ages. So, the blue one's no good because you'll be watching TV to watch cookery programs to eat, because you won't be able to afford to eat. So you have to watch the cookery programs and say, "Oh, what wonderful food! I can't eat it, but it's wonderful food." Whereas the red pill, the food is there and it's real. That's the difference. Can't remember who said that, but I do remember now. Yes, but it's a good point. The red pill is about making the best of your resources and not being conned by people. So I'm going to go in a minute because I've done my hour and it's late here because it's an hour behind now. So it's the equivalent of 4:14 from the other day. But please go back to the beginning of this hour. Brexit is the best thing that's happened to me politically since day one. Absolutely, because who would want to be in prison their whole life? I say it's an open prison, but it's a prison. Because imagine going to vote every 4 or 5 years and saying, well, you can't vote for these 3 policies because they're made by the EU. So all these policies are going to be the same whoever you vote for. And every 5 years, they're going to have more and more policies you can't vote for because the EU makes them instead. You'd be absolutely, well, you'd be living in a totalitarian state after 20 or 30 years, which is what's going to happen for all the people that are in the EU. Yeah, I mean, constitutionally, it was against the 1689 Bill of Rights, handing over our powers to a foreign country, which nobody has ever taken them to court over. So in a way you could say it was treason, and all the EU laws are void because nobody ever repealed the 1689 Bill of Rights. There's been one guy on the internet who's been trying to do it for years, and he lectures on it, but he's never actually got round to doing it, which is a bit strange. But now we're leaving, it doesn't matter. But you've got to understand that you can't have an accountable government you can't vote for, because it's the essence of democracy that if you don't like a law you can vote to change it. But we can't change any EU laws because they're not made democratically. The EU Parliament does absolutely nothing except talk about them and alter them slightly if they agree on it, otherwise they pass them as they are. So they're basically just rubber stamping it and doing a few fine tuning, and that's about it. Whereas Parliament makes laws that can be overturned in 5 minutes, such as the poll tax. You know, I mean, the poll tax was one of the best things that we had as far as local taxation was concerned. But constitutionally, it proves that if enough people don't want something, without an election they got rid of it. Not because it was good or bad, but because people didn't like it. Because often people don't understand economics to realise a policy is good or bad. They will just do it because it doesn't feel right to them. Now, of course, the poll tax lost, because I'll tell you why. All the other local taxes are based on the homeowner having to pay everything. So they were popular because only about 20 or 30% of the people had to pay it. So when you suddenly got to about 70% of all the people having to pay it, because if you had a household of 4 people over the age of 18, they would all pay quarter of the poll tax. Whereas under the normal system, which we've got now, the homeowner pays everything and everyone else pays bugger all. So suddenly about 70% more people were liable to pay tax, even though it was a lot less than they would have been paying otherwise. They rebelled because they say, I'm not paying this extra tax even though I get the benefits. And Margaret Thatcher in her wisdom said, all right, we'll get rid of it. Or was it John Major? I don't know. Certainly got her thrown out, whether she had time to repeal it or John Major. But the point is, in a direct democracy, you can overturn laws very quickly without an election if the will is strong enough. Whereas with the EU laws, we'll have them forever, because if you don't repeal a law, it's there. It's like a turd on the carpet. If you're not allowed to remove the turd from your carpet because you're going to get shot, it'll just stay there. It'll go white or something, but it'll always be there. And the EU laws are basically the same as having more and more of these EU turds all over your house. Or you can't get rid of that. It's an EU turd, or we're stuck with it. Whereas if it was a government turd, you know, you were allowed to go and clear it up if you were given permission. So the EU is basically represents totalitarian government for the entire continent of Europe and every country that joins it, which are bribed into it for one way or another. You know, you join our club and you'll get this, that and the other. And look what happened to Greece. They joined the club, they got given all the money, as did Ireland, and then they said, oh, by the way, sorry, you do have to pay it back with interest. We forgot about that. Now, of course, you know, they're not giving money to anybody. All they're doing is lending them money at pretty high rates of interest, waiting for them to default on it, and then they walk in and put in their own government. I mean, Italy, Greece and Cyprus were actually taken over by the EU for a while. Nobody said a word about it, even though it was technically turning them into a dictatorship, because they had what they call technocrats. The Greek and the Italian government were taken over by appointees, which means they are no longer democratic. And Cyprus went the step further by taking everybody's money to pay for their debts out of their bank account. Now, anyone that can do that, welcome. I'm just winding up now because I've done the hour, and because people have been sort of intermittent, I've said this is an actual hour's academic lecture. So I think if I have the technology, I'll say it now in case anyone can say yes or no. I will try and download this when I've finished. I am a teacher. I don't do teaching now, but I was a teacher for quite a long time. So yes, I can still be a teacher if I want to. So the answer is yes. I will download this and bung it on YouTube, because this is actually a compact hour's lecture, because I managed to get through it without any interruptions at all, which is actually the first time. It was boring in the end, simply because I was teaching in a school where I did the same syllabus twice a week in the lower and upper sixths every year, and in the third school sometimes. It got incredibly boring, so I re-qualified as a therapist and earn less money as a therapist than a teacher, but it's much more relaxed. But I did it for long enough, so you know, if I look back at my pupils, and I think I kept records, there are quite a few people that passed their exams from my tuition, so I'm happy. And you know, if anyone ever needed extra tuition, I would still do it, but I'm not going to go and teach in a school regularly, because it gets repetitive, because it's the same every year. You just repeat this whole thing. And the other thing was, I got more than the old class clown. In fact, the reason I finished, it was not because of the boringness. You know, any job gets boring, because the class clowns were dominating because they were paying fees, and because they were over 16, I couldn't punish them because they were voluntary pupils. So I had very little I could do about it, and they would take over, and they were big guys. They were all sort of 17 and 18 and still acting like children, spoilt boys, and it was a boys' school mainly, and in the end I got fed up with them because of the bad behaviour, because up till then I'd been in tutorial colleges with small classes where you only get one or two people and you tell them to shut up, and all the other kids tell them to shut up because they're paying fees as well. But in this other one, it was a much bigger school, and it was basically like your average comprehensive, but they paid fees but behaved like anybody else, and there was nothing I could do about it. So that was what finished my teaching career in schools. It was too much, it wasn't worth it by then. I'd had enough. I'll tell you what, when you went to the staff room, half the teachers looked like they were going to have a nervous breakdown. It really stressed them out. One of them, I think, got an MA in economics or something and left and got... Oh yeah, that I tell you, the holidays were the best. But for quite a few years, I wasn't getting paid for holidays, so I was working other things in the holidays in a warehouse. So until my final job, I wasn't getting paid for holidays. I was getting paid by the hour. But the final job actually paid an annual amount, whether I was working or not. So that was very nice. I must say, it was definitely worth it. So yeah, it was a good career for a while, but you know, we move on. I paid most of my housing bills by then, so I wasn't desperate for the money in the end. Well, no, what I was going to say, recording the letter, I couldn't do it in the school. I wasn't allowed to because I had to be there and answer questions. But this one, oh, well, lovely. Yeah, thanks a lot. What I'm going to do, if I can, is to download this and repost it on YouTube, because the thing about Periscope is it's god-awful trouble to find anything on Periscope, really, until people get used to it. Whereas YouTube, all you do is you just follow somebody, put up your thing and give it a title and then explain underneath what it is, and people will either find it or they won't find it. So hopefully, I mean, normally there's the cat's in the other room. I think he's probably asleep because the phone's charging. David Howard, it's Satguru, Satguru was my original name, because I used that for everything so I wouldn't forget it. And then they said, can we use our real names? But the site, David Howard, if you put in David Howard and Satguru, then it's almost impossible not to find me, because I think, you know, I'm probably one of the only David Howards there, because I don't think they allow you to duplicate. So yeah, that's it. So if you do the two of them together, you should find me, because it's they still got the old Satguru thing, but if you go in now, it says my name, but I think the Satguru is in the code. It shouldn't be difficult to find, because it's been there a long time. There are well, not, I don't know, thousands of videos. Right, well, it's charged enough now. Before I go, I will go into the other room. As far as I know, yeah, he's sitting there waiting for me. I'll turn the lights on. Oh. What's it done to my Periscope? Oh, I just got a full page advert. Luckily this is still working. Herman's Hermit. God, were they still going in 2007? Yes, Glart was plastic, yes. Plastic roof. It's very good polycarbonate. Yeah, Victor's still here and he's awake. So it's always difficult to turn the phone round when I'm doing myself. Here he is. Hello. He's saying, what's that picture over there? Hello. There's Victor. He's been sitting in the other room. The last week it's been cold and he's been in the whole time, because he normally, as soon as it's warm, over about 15 degrees, he spends most of the time outside and just comes in to sit down for a while and eat. And last week it's got cold. I like the sound. Welcome. Hello, go on. You didn't say anything. Oh no. Oh, he's marvellous. I like them. I used to like watching them in the 60s on Top of the Pops. They're very good. Oh, the lighting's better in here, isn't it? You know, I come in here now, so I've pretty much charged up the phone. Yeah, I don't think I've ever sat on a plane with anyone famous. Now, one day they'll say, oh, I sat on a plane with me, but not that I do much flying now. Oh, yeah. Oh, the Hollies are even better, actually. There's a guy who's... He used to live in London. He's moved up north, and he just recorded a song last week and he put it on Facebook. I've never heard his music before. It sounded just like the Hollies. I mean, the production, I don't know if he's released it or not. Production was professional and it sounded just like the Hollies. No, I don't. I don't need to smoke. I have a smoker's cough already. I've never smoked. I get allergies. Ordinary. Right. No, that's all right. Should be all right now. Anyway, I've done my hour now, and it's always typical when you're going to pack up, you get more viewers. But as I say, I'm going to find a way to download this if it's possible, or I'll repost it on YouTube, because then I'll get twice as many viewers. Yeah, much better lighting in here. I could do it next time. So all I have to do is plug in the charger if I need it. Yeah, I'm always up so late. So self-employed, you get away with murder when you're self-employed. But I don't mind. It's like, you know, if you've got a schedule and you get your work done, does it really matter when you're up? But you know, if I get enough time, I'll do these earlier. But I've always got so many things to do in the daytime that I get around to this. Yeah, I work from home. Well, you don't have to take the red pill. It's completely voluntary. I think the formula is 20% or something. Wake up. It'll take the others with you. Because the elite can only work with a certain amount of illusion. And if the illusion is broken, then all that happens is that there is a... it's like a revolution in thought that everyone wakes up and says, we're not taking this crap anymore. We know these taxes are rubbish. We know you're not spending them on us. You're taking most of it and sending... It's like the false charities when you send charity abroad and you know perfectly well that it never reaches the people that you send it to. It's the same with taxation. It's just very easy to cover it up and put it somewhere else. And in the end, people get wise to it. They say, well, why the hell have we got income tax at all? Or if we've got it, why is it so high? And why are they taxing people more the more that they earn, even though it's not actually going back into the economy, it's just taking it out? Because, of course, the more you earn and the more you spend, the economy will grow. They'll kill everyone. That's what they're designed to do. So what's actually happening is that you're just taking the same amount of money and shifting it around. Whereas if you let people keep their money, the economy grows because each person is adding to the economy by building something new. Because obviously if you've got a plot of land and you've got a pile of bricks, those bricks are worth a few £1,000s, and you make a house and it's worth 60 or 70,000 pounds plus the land. Same bricks, same everything else, but you've made it worth more. Now, anything that you make from the raw materials is going to be of more value, whether or not it needs space. Thank you. Yes, whether or not it needs space. Now, those raw materials, like jewellery, like gold, doesn't have a huge amount of value, but in fact, welcome. Yes, thank you. The jewellery is worth more as it's jewellery than it would be of the basic gold. So what you're doing is I've been to New York a long time ago, is you're converting things into being valuable. Now that's art. Thank you. You've got all your paint. You can buy a £10 tube of paints from W.H. Smith and make them into a painting worth £1 million if your name's Picasso, and you can keep doing that. Now, every painting that Picasso does when he was alive is going to be worth roughly the same amount. They go by the size as much as anything else and the subject. But somebody like Picasso could keep turning out paintings, which he did, and here he comes. See, here he is. Every painting that Picasso makes will add to the economy. Welcome. See, I'm still here. I'm going to stop in a minute because it's getting late. See, Victor says hello. He always talks. Hello, pussy. I come into the room that he was in. So, you know, if you take away Picasso's paintings or his money, you're starving the economy of new growth. Because they're cheating you now. Because what they're doing is they're adding population into growth. Because obviously the more people that are in a country, the more they earn. So the economy is larger. But if you divide that by the people, of course, then they're earning less. As in China. China's a bigger economy than England, but they earn a seventh as much in China as they do here. But their GDP and the growth... doing any reads? Reading what? Oh, not tonight. Good God, it's too late. No, I've been doing some for people here. I'll do them in the future. This is a red pill lecture, which is virtually over now, because if people want to watch it, they get bored after an hour, so they start to fall asleep. So stick it to an hour. But all I'm saying is that you're adding to the economy by everything you make, and the growth comes from actually adding assets to the economy so it can grow infinitely, whereas cramming the economy with people and saying it's growing because we've got more people and they're earning more money overall is the trick that they do to con you. And that will never change while people don't get it. And it's the same with any asset bubble that if everything costs more, just because you've got it in your house and you spend it, you've got so much inflation that everything you sell that's gone up in value, you're going to have to spend more because everything else costs more. Because inflation is the enemy of your bank account, because your bank account can never grow as fast as inflation unless the interest rates are about 20%, and all that does is cause even more inflation. So it makes no difference. What you really need is stability with steady growth and no inflation at all. But they don't want that because you can't get ripped off with steady growth and no inflation. There's no way to rip you off that way. So they put big taxes on, big inflation and false growth. And they say, well, don't throw us out. We got 3% growth this year. Well, half of that was from asset inflation and a quarter of that was from increasing the population. And the rest was from production. But in fact, you know, if you actually think about growth, if it's not production, it's not anything, is it? Because asset bubbles, you know, your house is the same size, whatever it's worth. You know, just because your house is worth another £50,000, you don't get any more room in it. It's just, you know, you can't even sell it because you've got to live somewhere. You're not going to go and live in the garden and sell your house, so it's bollocks. Anything that you own on paper that's worth something is meaningless because it's the same thing. But what they're doing is they are saying, because we're taxing people more, we've got more growth because we're actually taking more in tax. Well, you're only taking more in tax because you put the tax rates up. So if they're charging you £50,000 every time you sell your house instead of £30,000, there's no more houses being made or built or sold. All they're doing is taking more money from it, going back into the treasury. So, we took more money, so we've got growth because we've taken more money from the people this year. Well, that's not growth. All they're doing is they're doing an accounting trick of taking money from one column, putting it in another. And because one's not in the total and the other is in the total, they have magically found a few £billion that weren't in total number B. Of course it's theft, exactly, and the red pills simply expose what they've been doing for decades and decades. Yeah, see, I did a year of accounting, and the first year of accounting you learn how to represent the same figures to make a profit, a loss, or whatever you like. And once you know that, you're in there because they can't do it to you again. Because it's very easy legally to shift around money and shift around past and future income and assets and depreciation, and make it look like you're making money or not making money, depending whether the taxman or your shareholders or people are buying it. Which is my final point on the red pill tonight: is the entire mafia economy is based on Enron, who made more money from conning people than making products. I think my throat's telling me to stop. Look up Enron on Wikipedia and you'll see how they made money from thin air, and they actually got prosecuted for it. Not many companies get prosecuted for fraud, but Enron went too far. What they did what the mafia did once. Because you know how the mafias have businesses. Ah, yeah. Well, Enron are the essence to the red pill, because that's how governments work and dodgy businesses. This mafia bloke was running a dry cleaners. It was his front business for the usual mafia nonsense that goes on. And one day he said, well, hang on a minute, the dry cleaner's doing so well, I'm making more money than I am from the drugs and everything. I'm going to go straight. And they threatened to kill him because, of course, in the mafia, you've got to make money from crime. If you're in a genuine business, it makes them all look bad. Enron did it the other way round. They were making money from selling energy, and one day they had a really bad year. They had two choices. They either went into administration and got in finance, or they sold shares and refinanced. And of course, if they were doing badly, they couldn't sell more shares. So what they did is they used the accounting trick, and taking future profits, they said, we've got a method of making a huge profit, but it won't be realised for another 12 months. So they made people believe that they would make a lot more money in the next 12 months, which is what everyone tells the bank when they've got a business and they want to borrow lots of money, whether or not they can. That's what you've got a bank manager to do, to weed these out. Anyway, they had such a good cover story that they got huge amounts of money, and they filled in the gap within 12 months so that they were no longer making a loss. However, at the end of those 12 months, Ken Lay, because I can say his name because he is a convicted fraud, and his mates at the top of Enron said that we've actually made more money from the con that we did to make the money to put us back in profit than we did from selling energy. So instead of stopping it after a year when we've made our loss back, we're going to carry on doing both. So for about 3 years, they carried on conning people by selling fresh air and making more profits from it because it looked very good because it was actually a Ponzi scheme. And in the end, they finally got busted legally with his carbon credits. So we've got a nice full circle back through history, through politics and economics. Hopefully I will get this from YouTube. I will download it if it's possible, stick it on YouTube and get people to watch it, because I think I've managed to slip in just about everything people need to know about how they're conned in this. As I say, if you've already been red-pilled and you know it, spread the word, do your own talks on it and share the videos on it. And every person that learns from you will be a soul that has been saved from the darkness. And a miracle is save somebody and we get our angel wings. So that's the way it works. Sorry, Real Vibe, I'm going now before I lose my voice. Oh, well, it's not bad. I said I'd do an hour. I've done an hour and 20 minutes. Can't move now because Victor's here. He's patiently in the other room waiting for me. He sits in the other room looking after me, and then, because he doesn't like sitting on the other chair because it's too high for him. It's not got any sides on it. He waits for me to sit on a proper chair and he sits down with me. So he's happy now. You can hear him purring. Right, so as I said, watch this from the beginning. It's a condensed lecture of everything you need to know, because there's always more details. I could go on doing details for ages. In fact, I want to do this as a thesis next year, so hopefully it'll get me a qualification for all the effort I put in. And you can share this far and wide. Every possible basic element needed is in this hour's lecture, so I know all the different bits and pieces, and that's all people need to hear, because nothing I say is opinion, nothing I say is inaccurate, because they're all very simple facts that can be checked. And the battery's about to go now because I've unplugged it anyway, so even if I did want to carry on, the battery would go off. So yeah, I'll wind up the actual lecture bit here because I've got everything I need to know, and anything else will muddy the water. So hopefully it'll work. Trump has red-pilled the Americans. The British are divided between the Brexiteers and the others. We haven't left yet. But we're winning. Eastern Europe is waking up. And in the end it'll just be Southern Europe and Western Europe that can be floated off in their political ship and stranded in the sea of nothing while we all succeed. And going by the accounts, 2 years after we've left the common market, we'll have growth double the Eurozone, because they are heading for absolute destruction. And also they'll lose all our contributions, so they won't be able to bail out all the Eurozone anymore. Welcome, Alex. I'm just about to go because I've done an hour and a half and my voice and the battery are going, but please watch this, and I'll try and get it onto YouTube if it's possible. I will say good night to you all. I will do more regular stuff now because I've got a bit more time. The red pill is how to wake up from the illusion of world politics and the left wing telling you that everything is marvellous while they're picking your pocket and eating your children or whatever they're doing. So if they say it's good and it's helping you, it never is. And I've explained why, and I've got all the light, you can see all the toothpaste down my shirt. Good, yeah. The great thing about the red pill is it's so bloody simple once you understand it. There's nothing complicated at all. It's just common sense. It's like the 3-card trick, or you know, when you've got the 3 balls and you put the cup on the ball and you know how they fiddle it. When you know it, they can't fiddle you anymore. It's just a very, yeah, it's from The Matrix. It's the film. Do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? If you take the red pill, you'll see the truth, but you won't like it. It's from Neo in the Matrix films. And the point is about the red pill is that it's very easy to take it politically and to understand it, and it works. And it's the metaphor that we use to explain to people that you've woken up and you can't be fooled by their tricks anymore, because it's just like going to a magician and thinking, oh my God, he's produced all these coins from nowhere, and then when you realise he's got them behind his ear or up his sleeve or in his pocket, exactly, all the MAGA movement. So as I say, if you're already red pill, just spread the word and share it, because we only need 20% of each country to wake up, and it'll spread, because they can't keep it going with that many people that see through it, because the truth is always +1. So if you've got two people arguing, one's lying and one's telling the truth, well, of course, exactly. That's why I do it, because my teaching background and everything else means, firstly, I've got the big picture. It took me 20, 30 years or so to learn the stuff, to put it together, and then the experience of teaching, just to put it into usable lecture form. And, all you need to do is just give 1 or 2 points. Well, I mean, I didn't give house prices particularly, but I did mention it. But that high house prices means you're paying more and more of your income to live somewhere. You can never make a profit from your house price going up, because the more it goes up for you, the more it goes up for everyone else. And when you want to sell your house and buy something bigger, it's going to cost even more, because the other one's gone up even more than yours. So high house prices are a good example to start with. So that's one thing. And as I said, taxation is another, because the more they take, the less there is. And if they take the same amount from everyone, then it means that you are incentivised and the economy grows, because instead of losing more money, the more money you make, you will gain it, and you will add value to the economy, which is genuine growth and not false growth. So those 2 basic principles are behind it. And, all you need is to keep repeating the simple things. Production is based on assets, not on value or population, and you have to take away the other things from your GDP to see the genuine growth. And the same with inflation. Inflation, again, is theft. And the proof of that is that the Western governments now have a 2% inflation target, which means that your assets are going to be worth 2% less every year, because the government has arranged the economy to shrink by 2% every year and go to them, because money never gets lost unless it's burnt or destroyed. Well, you don't have to, but at least you're being exposed to the truth. All that money is just transferred from one person to another. So, the Illuminati are the people that want to keep you blue-pilled, and the red pills are the people that are shining the light in the dark to see what's really there, lifting the wrapper to see all the monsters. And when you see monsters, you spray them with monster spray and get rid of them. Antibiotics, draining the swamp. That's how it works. And it's a simple formula. Just repeat the simple stuff over and over again, and people will soon be doing it in their sleep. They'll be dreaming and say, oh my goodness, our purchasing power has fallen even though the GDP has risen. That means GDP does not equal wealth, because my purchasing power has fallen. Such simple formulas. It's all incredibly simple if you break it down into the basics. So I'll leave you with that. Your purchasing power is how you judge the economy. Well, microchips are a power which are very good as long as you use them for good and not for evil. So as long as your microchips are doing what this is doing and communicating, it's marvellous. But you don't use it to track people and stop them from doing certain things, do you? Because then you're using it for the opposite, which is another thing. Energy is absolutely neutral. It just depends what you do with it. And typical, I've got more viewers now and I'm going. But anyway, rewind this to the beginning. So if you're still up and you're still in a country, it's all happening. We're right at the end now. We've almost won. Everything is falling apart. I am just giving it the last shove to knock it down. I've been working 10, 15 years to get to this point. and I can see that my work is almost done. And now, instead of it being an incredible uphill climb off Bitcoin, I just know enough about it to know what it is. But I'll put it this way, I wouldn't spend it. What work? Psychotherapy is my current work. And I might do a criminology degree next year, which I gave up. Because it's just taken that long to get all the basics together and for people to understand. Oh, and there goes the phone. Pussykins. Pussykins.